Today we're going to show you how a converter works and its internals.
Here we have a Goerend bolt together converter. I have an impact with a 3/16 Allen head.
And we are going to take the bolts off of the billet back converter. Now that we have all of the bolts removed, we're going to take a couple of the bolts that we did remove, put them back into the guiding holes to help us finish removing the backing plate.
Now that we have the backing plate released, we're going to use 2 torque converter bolts to take the plate off. Where am I? Oh my god. Oh.
Now we're going to remove the lockup plate and the clutches that come with it. That was really big.
It definitely was. Now we're going to remove the turbine from the converter.
Now we're going to be removing this stator.
And when we're removing the parts of the converter, we're removing them in the orientation that they came out.
Now that we have cleaned the converter and all of its internals, it is time to reassemble. The first part that goes back into the converter is going to be the bearing, and we're going to lube it up.
Never use enough lube.
Then we're going to place the stator back in. And then the second bearing. Sounds funny.
We just installed the stator, which controls the stall speed in the vehicle. Next, we're going to install the turbine.
The turbine splines the input shaft, which drives the transmission.
Next thing we're going to do is put the O-ring on the back of the turbine. We're going to lube it up. And then we're going to put the lockup piston on.
When we install the lockup piston, we're going to flip it upside down, take 2 threaded bolts to help us place it back into the turbine.
Now that we have the lockup piston installed and seated correctly, we are going to install the lockup clutches.
Now that we do have the clutches installed, we are going to go ahead and place the O-ring back on. Now that we have the O-ring back on, we are going to place the thrust washer, making sure we lube both sides before doing so. That way we can place the backing plate back on. When placing the backing plate back on, do be sure that you make sure the lines that you set while disassembling are lined back up for orientation. Now that we have the backing plate on, we are going to red Loctite all of the bolts back into it,
And then we're going to torque them.
torque or torque.
Well, torque. Torque in action.
Now that we have the bolts in with red Loctite, we are going to torque them. Oh wait, no, we can do these first. Oh wait, no, we can do this first. And then the other one's going to take it out.
And then over there. That was weird.
Yeah! Yeah. Now we're going to move the lockup plate and no, do it again. I'll get it this time. Okay, ready? Now that we have the bolts in with red Loctite, we are going to torque them.
Oh.
The first part you're going to be installing is going to be.
Oh my god.
Goerend. I'm not.